Fame, if you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to long?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Boomer Pod podcast, where we interview movie and TV celebrities. Our guest today is a renowned stunt performer, actress, writer, producer, Miss Bridgette Bentley. Welcome, Bridgette. Welcome,
Hi,
Bridgette.
how are you?
Thank you for being with us. I'm fine.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Let's talk about your amazing career in acting, stunt performing, writing, and producing. How did you get started, and how did each of these roles develop?
Well, first, let me say I consider myself as still pretty new. I've been in the game for a few years, but I would say I seriously started booking around 2017. And I got started because it was always in me. You know, when you're doing church plays and you're at school and you're in the school production. So I think there was always a need to entertain and be with your friends and like just show the talent in the room. And uh I think my first big thing, I was doing modeling in Atlanta, kind of urban modeling, like the music videos, the different rappers, you know, Ludacris, T.I., those are some of the popular Atlanta rappers. I'm not sure where your listeners and the people watching are from, but that's where I am now. I'm in Atlanta. And so that's where I started. And I said, you know, I really want to get into acting. I really want to do that. And so I had done some extra work for a few projects. And then let me tell you, I was on the set of Game Night. I'll never forget this. And Jason Bateman, such a nice guy. And there are a few other really good actors in that movie. But I saw some people doing some fighting, and we were circled around them, and it was just so hyper. We were cheering them on, and I talked to the stunt coordinator next to me, and I said, "What are they doing?" Because they stayed a few less hours. They got to fight and have fun, and they left, they were out of there. And he said, "Those are stunt performers." And I said, "Okay." So I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And, you know, it's been a blessing because although I started in acting and modeling, the stunts have gotten me on more sets. So it's just a blessing. It's so much fun.
Well, that's quite a line of work trajectory. What other
Yes.
what other career paths did you try before the entertainment bug hit?
Yes. So I am currently a Delta flight attendant. Now, I will say this, I'm not representing Delta in any way. You know, we have very strict policies as far as, you know, your social media, but I was acting first and then I got into Delta. So we've been very clear. I've spoken to my supervisor about that, you know, I was acting first and that was okay. But basically a flight attendant, I've been a flight attendant. I actually lived in Alabama. That's where I'm from. I'm from Alabama, and I lived there, and I moved to Atlanta. You're not going to believe this. My first job, I was a police officer. So I've always had a need to help people and also have some action. I love action. Oh my God, can I just tell you, I love action movies. So I think that's where that came from. My father is an investigator and he's a coroner, and he would talk about his cases. So I think that's where, you know, I went into police work first, had an on-duty car accident that was someone else's fault. So that led me into a different path. I said, what can I do safety-wise where I'm still working with people? And then that's where I got into Delta. So here I am today, you know, doing the acting and still flying. And let me tell you, my dad, I said at one point, I was like, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna just act full time and do stunts full time. And my dad said, listen, unless Tom Cruise calls you for one of his movies, don't you dare leave. And I tell you, right when he said, I said, okay, Dad, you're right. And I stayed. And right after that, the strike happened. And then I wouldn't have been working at, what was that, 8 months anyway? So I was like, thank God for Delta.
Let me ask you this. With all of the movies that you've worked on, how do you have time to fly?
I make it work. I make it work because I think what's interesting is that when I have a project, unless I'll say this, I've had maybe 5 or 6 lead roles, but the other roles I've had have typically been just a day of work or maybe a week of work. So that's why I can spread my projects out and I can just fly as much as I want. And I'm a few years in at Delta now, so I can, fly a quick 3-day one week, and then the next week I may have my projects. I'm very organized, and I make it a point every day, even when I'm not booked or I don't have a specific booking, I just make it a point every day. Let's see, what can I work on? Can I do monologues? I train every day. I do taekwondo. I'm a swimmer and a scuba diver. So if there's something I can do, swimming, take a few laps, I'll do that. But just whatever I can do, because the flight attendant is easy. It's you show up, be on time, and take care of your passengers. That's easy. Just show up, But the acting and the stunts, it's specific. I gotta stay on my stuff. I gotta be good, and I gotta keep training. So I just make it work.
You are amazing.
Thank you.
Are you staying with the flying due to finances or just because you love it?
I love it. And I'll be honest, let me tell you, I am 8.5 years in, and at 10 years, you get lifetime flight benefits, which I think that is the case at most airlines. But I'm just so close that I'm like, oh, I should stay. I should stay and get those benefits because it has been very helpful to me because I've done audition, now we're more so into the era of self-tapes, but when we were doing more the physical in person, I was using my flight benefits to go different places, and I still do that. I'll fly out to LA just to train in stunts. I'll train with Jam or Mike Chat or some of the other stunt professionals in LA, and then I'll come right back home, and it's just it makes it work. I would suggest to anybody, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, have a backup plan. It's good financially, but it's also fun.
Well, tell us about some of your movies. How about Faded Reunion
Yes.
2022
Oh my
is
God.
Mandy Sanders.
Yes, Mandy Sanders. I played a doctor who just really wanted to impress. She has a school reunion and she wants to impress her old classmates. So she literally pays this guy for a date. Can you imagine? And it was so much fun making that because a lot of the people in that film I am friends with, and we met on other sets. So that I have filmed other projects with a lot of people in that film. And that director, if I could tell you this quick story, that director I actually met as an extra. And we were on Edge of the Blade, the Oscar Pistorius story. Now, I don't know if that ever came out, but we made that film in Atlanta. It was downtown Atlanta, and I'll never forget. Omega Keys walks up to me. That's the director of Faded Reunion, and she goes, I saw you. I played this. I was just doing extra work, and I was diving in the pool, and I had to do it over and over again because they were changing up the lines. So I had to do it a bunch of times. And she just said, you know, you look great. You have a great attitude. She said, I'm going to put you in one of my movies someday. And she said she had written some books. And honestly, she came back years later and she kept her promise and she put me in her movie. And I just was so blown away, so grateful. And it's a wonderful story. It's comedy, so I would tell everyone, check it out. I don't want to tell the story too much, but I think you'll enjoy it. It's a love story.
Well, that's great. Now, how about one of my favorite movies, The Color Purple,
Oh gosh.
with
Oh,
with Celie and Shug?
oh my gosh. Let me just tell you, I have, if you've seen the original Color Purple, and you see this movie, I just think it does such a good job of just retelling the story, but in their own way and making it a musical. It's the same but different. It's just such a beautiful story, and it talks about, you know, just things that we deal with it in the heart, you know, um dealing with relationships and some of the inner turmoils of being African American in America. It's a wonderful, heartwarming story. And my role in that film, I actually got to ride in a carriage. I got to ride a horse. I was a stunt double for I forget the name of the character, but I was a stunt double for that movie. And let me tell you, I love animals. I love horses and riding horses. So that it was just a dream come true to be on that set. And that's the thing. I am a big fan of movies myself and of Oprah Winfrey and of just, you know, to be around stars like that, Fantasia and the other singers on the set, they're just so talented. So that was a blessing. That was a blessing to be a part of that.
I didn't know that the lead characters in that movie and the remake could sing. Did they do their own singing?
Yes, they did. They did. And let me tell you, they were singing on set, and it was just like, you just look around and you just hear somebody going away at it, and they sound like angels. It's such a wonderful movie. I would tell anyone to check that one out. Check that one out.
I
It was
definitely
lovely.
will. I definitely will. And now, of course, the 2022 short, La Oasis, that you wrote and produced. Tell
Oh,
us about all the roles that you played in that production.
yes, yes. So that was my first big production. I had done some short films with my friends, and I've been doing, I think I have 6 finished short films. And the ones that I had done previous to that, I used to get my friends together. I would literally just people I knew, I would say, I'm going to write something. Let's get together and create. Because when you're surrounded by so many talented people, you just want everybody to show what they can do. And I love writing. So, La Oasis, for that story, I knew that I wanted to do an urban legend. I'm a big fan of horror and action. I love horror and action movies. And I thought, what is an urban legend? A friend challenged me, a director friend challenged me, who is Latina. She challenged me to write a Latina themed film for a specific film festival that we wanted to enter. Now, we had a month of planning, but the first 2 weeks, I will never forget, this was Easter when we shot it. So 2 weeks before Easter, nobody was available. And that's the hardest thing about bringing everybody together is to, you know, working out those schedules. So I had to wait until after Easter. So let me tell you, we had 2 weeks. I know that sounds like a lot of time, but for me, with this being the largest production, I had almost 20 cast members. I had crew. I had everyone. And basically, the story of 2 sisters running a hotel. There's an older sister, she's a really stern disciplinarian to her younger sister because the parents have passed away. So they are running this hotel when they get a mysterious visitor. Now, the visitor, I don't want to tell it too much. I want people to go and watch it, but I will just tell you the legend touches upon a true story within Dominican Republic of what's called a La Ciguapa, if I'm saying it correctly. And this is a creature that is supposed to have been seen in the Dominican Republic that could shapeshift, and that is all I will say. I'll say check out the movie, but I enjoyed making that so much. I enjoyed making that, and I played one of the hotel visitors. And the story, I was just a day player in my film. The story was about, I wanted to kind of showcase my Latino friends. So I casted it mostly a mostly Latino set, but it was mixed, we had Black, we had white and Latina, but the main characters were Latino. I just really wanted them to showcase their talents and talk about this family and how they're making it in the hotel business.
And where was it shot?
It was shot at my home. And that is also another like good story because let me tell you, we rented out. There's a restaurant in our square, in our apartment square, and I rented out the restaurant for 2 days. And let me tell you, I was running around like this because we had some scenes that took place in my bedroom. We had a few scenes that took place in the hallway. I had to try to keep the noise down, with that many people coming and going. I did try to let my leasing office know that, hey, we're shooting something, but, I didn't necessarily have any licenses or anything. So, listen, this is the world of independent filmmaking. You do what you can, you save what you can, but I did spend quite a bit of money. I think I spent a total of about 7,000, 8,000, 8,000 on that between paying cast, paying crew, renting out the restaurant for 2 days. It just came out the way I envisioned, Larry. It was like I literally, when I'm writing something, I'll do what I call my dreamscape, which is this is something that Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla used to do when they were trying to solve a problem. They would envision it first. They would try to see it first. And that's what I do when I'm writing or when I have goals, just something I want to complete. I close my eyes and I try to see it first. And honestly, this movie, I saw it play out in my head. So once I had it made, nothing is perfect. You learn so much when you're a brand new filmmaker, but we had a great time making that.
Bridgette, do you ever answer to the term entrepreneur?
I guess, I just try to stay humble, but I think that is what I do. Yeah. Because I've even had I had a store in the mall for a short time. That was a learning lesson because I make jewelry and I was selling Egyptian oils and oil burners. And so yeah, when you think of it that way, I think it is kind of I I I think I'm more of an artist. I'm an artist.
An entrepreneurial artist.
Yes, yes.
That's great. Let's talk about one last movie, Badass Sister. I think that's in
Ooh,
post-production, isn't it?
it is. Oh my
What can
gosh,
you
I
what can you tell
cannot.
me about it?
Woo, I can't wait. So I will just say, how much can I say about that? Because it's not, they haven't officially announced it yet, but I play Kim King, and she is the daughter of a former drug dealer, and he owes some debts to some other people. And, he got out of the business, but let me just say that sometimes your past comes back to bite you in the butt. So I am, I am basically, how much do you say when you're trying not to say too much? I am basically advocating for my father in this movie. And I enjoyed this movie because I got to act and do my own stunts. So instead of being a stunt double for someone else, I was doing the stunts and it was awesome. We had some really good fight scenes in that. So when it comes out, make sure y'all check it out.
We will. We will. What can you tell us about your family and your heritage?
Yes, so I was raised in Alabama. That's where I'm from. My father and my grandparents actually raised me. I did not get to be with my mother until I moved to Atlanta when I was after college, pretty much. But I grew up really close with my dad and my grandparents. And, my mother and I have since become very close. And now it's just she and I in Atlanta. We live down the street from each other now. And it was such a wonderful story because I moved to Atlanta to be a cop, and she moved to Atlanta from Detroit. And we moved within a few months of each other. And so we were able to reconnect. I will just tell anyone that forgiveness is important. You do it for yourself as well as the other person. So I was glad that we were able to build a relationship afterwards. But Larry, let me tell you an interesting story. I took a DNA test recently, and it just, I would suggest to anybody to do it because it just totally, I was shocked at the results. And it started so many stories between myself and my parents because I knew I would see African. I was like, I want to know what tribe from Africa I'm from. That's just something, especially with African American people. We know that, most of us came from Africa, but it's like, where did I come from? So when I took the test, let me tell you, it was 40% Nigerian. Oh, let me just say this first. I was expecting there to be some Spanish heritage because I have some Latino family members. I thought that I would see Native American because I have an aunt who's Cherokee Indian. I have a few cousins that are both Spanish or Native American. So I thought that's what I was going to see, as well as African. And let me tell you, it was 40% Nigerian, 26% Irish, and 20% British, and then all the rest of the smaller percentages were North African, Indonesian, Thai, um, and one other African tribe I can't remember the name of. But it just was a conversation like I talked to my mom and I was like, wait, are you my mama? Like, who's is my daddy my daddy? Like, where does the Irish and the British come from? And so the Irish was actually from my mother's side, and that was most of her family, and the British was from my father. And we're not really aware of the Nigerian heritage, but my name is Bridgette, that's Irish. And it just was such an interesting story to learn about my grandparents, my great grandparents, my heritage. And it just was fascinating. It just was fascinating to learn more about yourself. And I would tell anybody to do that. I appreciate so many cultures in the world. And I just think that everyone is beautiful in their own way. So to find out that bit of myself, I was shocked because I was like, there was zero Spanish heritage, zero Spanish and zero Native American. And I was like, when you grow up your whole life thinking, oh, that's what I am. uh, it was like, wow, I'm Nigerian. This is so amazing. So yeah, very interesting. And oh, and one last thing, there was a love story between my great grandfather who was Irish and his wife, who I think was also Irish, but there was a really big love story about them leaving Ireland to come to America. So um I just have no words. It's a beautiful thing.
You're an amazing person. Where, what,
Thank you.
where do you see yourself throughout the next 10 years, Bridgette?
Ooh, wow. Okay, the next 10 years. So I will say that in the next 10 years, I'm gonna manifest it right now. I want a big action role. Um, something like, because you know how everyone has their mentors or their idols, and let me tell you, one of my favorites, other than I love Al Pacino and Denzel Washington. Female wise, I love Halle Berry. And the role she played in John Wick 3, let me just tell you, whew, she did an amazing job. And I just would love to play a role like that someday in a big movie. So I'm thinking of that one day, but I'm also going to hoping to get a film that I have written. I've written a feature film, my first feature film, and it's called Lucky Street. And I will just say it is part Mission Impossible, part Scarface, and it's a story about a gun runner versus a nuclear arms dealer, and they're both women. So I am hoping that, if I can get that funding, well, when I get that funding for that movie, I hope to release that to the world someday. But in 10 years, that's just, I hope to still be creating and just acting full time at that point, and maybe married by then, but yeah, still just creating and just enjoying the people around me, and also uh still going to church. I'm Catholic, and I love my church here in Atlanta. So I think in 10 years, that's what I'll be. I'll just hopefully I will reach those goals within 10 years.
Well, I hope all of your dreams come true, Bridgette. What have
Thank
I
you.
what have I missed? Anything you'd like to mention or pitch other than what we've
I
talked about?
I will just say that I had although I didn't have any lines, you can see me in Black Panther 2. And you can see me in Shazam 2. Like Shazam 2, I think I'm playing a police officer, and I'm shooting at the monster in that movie. And the reason why I mention them is because I love superhero movies. I am such a big fan of Marvel and DC. They're my favorites. I love, like I said before, I love action and horror movies, but were some of my favorites. So I just have to say I'm so grateful that I actually got to be in those movies. It's just it means a lot. It means a whole lot. But yeah, I think we've touched on everything.
Well, will you join us again in the future to share any updates in your career?
Yes, I would love that. And I hope that by the time I come back that I have some good news about upcoming projects that I have coming out. And I really enjoyed this. I hope your listeners take a chance to look at my work. You can see me on Instagram. I'm under only the number one Bridgette Bentley, or you can check me out on Facebook, which is more my family page, more family stuff there. But yeah, check me out and follow me. I'll follow you back.
Well, be well, sweet woman. And thank you for the interesting conversation.
You as well. You take care and please do call again. Enjoy your day, Larry.
You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
And you will be happy too.